have a leeway. There's a problem between Buhari and Jonathan Goodluck, and Jonathan Goodluck and Tinubu and Atiku. That group don't care what happens to the rest of us. And the only way people can survive is to agitate. Let me close. When I look back and look at the military years, the few things that workers managed to do in the civil service came through NLC strike. And that's what brought Adams Oshiomhole to the fore. Because he held them by the jugular. And what he did at that time was to ensure that even common people on the street who don't have access to Abuja people, who cannot stay on top and move with the government, can also have something. If there were no strikes over those years, those military people, I remember Abacha saying that he does not have any money. We still have it, even his repatriated loot, we still have it up to now. I remember that time, and I was almost arguing with somebody that this man is sincere. He said there's no money to pay for this, that what ASUU is asking for, I had, is 18 billion. The amount of money that politicians used to pay for the forms is about 25 billion. I mean, people that they donated, that's individuals. So for me, it's a matter of priority. The leadership of the nation does not prioritize education like that. They just see them as one of these set of people who are just agitating. Just find a way to calm them down and then give them a little bit of what they need, and then let's move on. For me, the more we have that kind of leadership at the center, it will continue. And that's why Prof is right. But to say that ASUU went into, there's no illegality, because when you have not given me something that I need to survive, I become illegal. If you have a dog, you have not even fed him for some times, even though it's friendly to you, what it does is that it begins to bark and may even want to bite the person who actually bought it. For me, that's my own reaction to what Prof said. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In fact, this is really very deeply expository, and there are quite a lot of things that have come out, and it is very instructive, Dr. Ziko, that you did not try to disprove what Prof said strictly on the basis of legal, on the basis of legal arguments, So I take note of that, and I'll come back to you on that, because you did not fault his legal position, but of course you talked about the practicalities of it.
Those laws, like there are so many laws in Nigeria, sir. Many. The government on a daily basis keeps violating.
Okay, I believe Doc will continue once. Okay, go on, sir. Yeah, go on, sir. Go on. We lost you there for a few seconds.
So for me, it's not just about ASUU alone. There's so many things. Look at the medical aspect of life. Look at banking. Somebody will just come with a law one time and then change it. They keep changing. At the pleasure of the presidency. There's a lot of politics. We don't live. We have not learned to live according to extant rules and regulations in this country. It's a jungle. So, and when it is a jungle, it is survival of the fittest. And for a lot of these academics, a lot of them, their life is threatened. The quality of their life is low. So, strike is the way out. All these academic whatever, and you go to a governing council, you got it, no way. Why does the government listen to them? Why does the government also release money after they talk to them? That's illegal. But it's not illegal in this environment. Until a leader comes and say this is the way we need to get things done, it will continue like that.
Okay,
that's my own submission.
Thank you so much, Doc. I mean, we've got about 1 hour to go, so we want to absolutely maximize it, because there are quite a lot of issues that have actually come up. And of course, one of the things to think of, I repeat again, is quite a lot of people have come out from the university system itself and become very influential people in society. And strange enough, we haven't really seen them make a difference. Of course, let's hope the governor-elect of Ekiti State now, when I was in final year in that university, he had finished, and he had come back as a lecturer. He was a lecturer, I believe, was in political science or sociology. He was a lecturer then, but and today he's actually in the next few weeks he's going to be sworn in as a visitor of the university of the Ekiti State University. There. Now we're coming back to some of these issues. Now, some of the arguments, ASUU. At the time this was signed, Prof did make a statement. He said, you know what, government will say, is that what we'll sign, and then they know that another strike will come anyway. Now, government has argued against the arguments. Government is a continuum. We always argue that. So don't let me say it's predecessors, but let's say government has argued against the argument, against the agreement he signed a few years back. And he's saying that, look, the resources, the nation's resources can no longer sustain that 2-3 year upward review in this agreement, because whenever you have a review, ASUU is never going to agree to a downward review in the allocations, in the salaries and everything, allocations to the university sector, research grants and everything. ASUU would always argue for a very big increase, so government has continued to argue that this is all sustainable, having all these things reviewed every, is it 2 or 3 years, and of course when we hear about the story of the amount that as at May, the latest figure we had during the week on the spending on subsidy alone, it just shows the kind of trouble that the Nigerian economy is in terms of the revenues to the federal purse to service our debt and to actually fund other aspects of all those things. And of course, we also know that in that same university system, there's always that bandwagon effect, and at times I'm like Dr. Oyewole, would you be a member of Tertiary or ASUU, or so you've got SANU, you've got NASU, you've got Tertiary, and they're always just waiting for ASUU. Once ASUU gets anything, there'll be strikes. Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics and the others and associated institutions, they go on strike as well. These are all the issues in the university, and let me read this. This was from about 9 years ago. These were questions from some university people, and they are as pertinent as they are today. The current protracted strike action, and once again I repeat, this was September 2013. The current protracted strike action being embarked by the members of ASUU is said to be to ensure that the federal government does not renege on the agreement it signed with ASUU in 2009. But the question I ask, if eventually the government implements in full the agreement they had with ASUU, will this in any way result to the complete stoppage of escalating corruption that we experience in the Nigerian public university system? Will this stop some of our lecturers from sexually harassing students, female students, extorting? Of course, these are issues that payment before and sale of handouts, and outright unseriousness exhibited by some lecturers who are actually hardly available for lectures anyway or to supervise projects. And if government meets their demands, would there be no other reason in future to have an excuse to strike again? So quite a lot. This is from 2013, and the issues are as relevant as they are today. So I'm just going to go to Prof for 5 minutes and Doctor again for 5 minutes, because there are loads of questions, and I want all those who are present here to be able to ask to ask questions if they want to talk, or the questions in the chat. I see a lot from Johnson Abali, Chinere Mbanzoko has been on fire there, K. There are loads of questions, and I believe a few others want to ask questions. So please, in advance, can you just please put your hands up, use the hand to raise up your hands if you want to ask questions or comment or contribute in any way. We're going to recognize you. But in the meantime, let me go back to Prof. Prof, over to you, sir.
Thank you once again. Thanks to all the contributors of the chat group. Great points being made. We're influenced by our background and our context. I'm an HR professional. Our job is to deal with the employees and unions. So I'm not going to talk about unionism and not talk about the law,
because the union came to be because there's a law. And I'm not going to sit down to talk about ASUU going on strike. When I know that ASUU is going on strike, I'm fighting the wrong person. A union strike, a labor dispute is between an employer and an employee. ASUU is an employee, or ASUU is a collection of employees. The employer is the council. Go to your council. Simple. There's no. You see, all this problem we have today. If the Minister for Education will be bold enough to tell ASUU to go and negotiate the various councils, and you see, that single decision will end the strike. Why am I saying so? Because, doctor said that I'm theoretical. I'm an academic. That's why we're supposed to be theoretical, right? I mean, so, but it's not as if we don't have enough data to back the theory. Last month, I'll tell you what happened last month. 4-5 years ago, the Senior Staff Association of the Obafemi University in Ife, Osun State, went on strike, demanding the University Council of OAU to pay them some money. The strike was protracted and there was no solution. The council claimed that this money is not legal. SANU said the money is legal and went on strike. Do you know what the council did in OAU? The council took SANU to the Nigerian Industrial Court and asked the court to declare the strike as illegal and also stop SANU from going on strike on that issue any longer. Last month, Nigerian Industrial Court in Ibadan declared the strike by SANU as illegal. First time in Nigeria that a university union was taken to a university court and the court declared a previous strike as illegal. Now, the court did not stop there. The court said this action is illegal, but declared that they can't go on strike on that issue any longer forever. I'm not mentioning theory. I'm telling you what a court decision came out last month. I have a copy of the court decision. So, but what happened? Who are you? And that's why I say the solution is give the power back to the council. The council said, guys, you went on strike, right? I am your employer. I'm taking you to court. And they go to court and won. And the court said, one, and the strike is in there. Two, you can't go on strike on the same issue. If you give the responsibility back to the council of the university, they will take all those ASUU people to court. And the court will tell them, you can't go on strike on an issue. But at the same time, the Nigerian Industrial Court 2 months ago ruled that collective agreements today are contracts. And an employee has a right to go to court to affirm it. Actually, by law today in Nigeria, based on that decision, if you sign a collective agreement with Unilag or LASU or whatsoever, and they don't obey it, you can go to court to force them to obey it. And if they don't obey it, you can raise a garnishee order to ask the central bank to compel them to release the money to them. We've seen it happen before. Somebody just did the same thing against an NPC last month. These are not theory. These are things that has happened. And, the idea of, appointment of council, can they do something about government? I'm going to mention who makes council so that we can understand it. 2011, 2021, the federal government constituted the council of Unilag, UI, OAU, and 2 other universities. There were only 5 appointees that were appointed by the government. Of course, they always appoint the chairman. But in the case of Unilag, because it's also very important, in the case of Unilag has always had the law of having his alumni as his chairman. So whether it was a former man that left, Mr. Babalakin, who handed over interim to John Momo of Channels Television, the current person is Dr. Ted Joshua. Are you saying that John Momo cannot be bold enough to stand up to the government and say, I don't want this to happen in my university? 5 people were appointed by the federal government. The council of Unilag. But you know the interesting thing? 4 people in that council are appointed by the Senate. Who are members of Senate, ASUU members? 2 people from that in that council are appointed by congregation. Who makes congregation? ASUU members, SANU members, and all senior staff of universities make up congregation. 1 person in that council represents congregation. What is congregation? Congregation is all graduate staff of the university and all alumni. It is that staff member that is most likely going to likely be the chairman of the alumni association, like it happens in many places. So, based on constituency, there are 6 people from the university staff on council. There is an alumni rep, right? So in terms of decision making, when we want to vote, the university staff are more than the others. The university staff in the CONIDE with the alumni person, they are more than the government official, and decision making in council is by democracy. So when people say they are so they can't do anything, it's not that they don't want to do anything. They do not. It is just that they don't want to do anything. I agree to that. But the question is that they are not doing anything. It's also because we are not asking them to do it. I have a disadvantage. I don't have a child in a federal university. I'm not like Dr. Zico that has 3 children who are going to become doctors. I'm not like him. So, but if Dr. Zico had a child in the University of Lagos and this strike is on, I am willing to pay a lawyer for Dr. Zico to take the University of Lagos to court for why is on strike. Again, Dr. Zico will say I am talking theory. 2 years ago, the staff of Anambra State Primary School went on strike. And the governor said there's an essential services list listed by law in Nigeria that determines who can go on strike. So the governor went on that and said primary school teacher essential staff, they can't go on strike. The teachers went to court. The governor lost the case in court because the court said the power to declaring who was on essential list is given to the president, not to the governor. So the president should have asked the president, the governor should have asked the president to declare it on the basis of that, a loss on the basis of technicality. But the question we need to ask ourselves, again, Dr. Ijan, how many viewers are here? The Nigerian law says that, and I can be sure many of you would have heard that when universities in the 80s and early 90s, remember that there was a time in Nigeria that professors don't participate in ASUU strikes. Actually, professors are not part of it. Do you know why? The Nigerian law on labor relations says if you are an extension of management, you cannot belong to a union. That same law was affirmed by the International Labour Organization. That same law is also the law in Canada. That same law is also the law in the US. That same law is the law in UK. So, because you are an extension of management, you can't belong to a union. And so, during the time of the military, when ASUU goes on strike, the professors will still come to work because they can't actively do it. But today, what has happened? Because it has, and that's why I said the government benefits from it. The president of ASUU is a professor. That man is an extension of management. By law, it is illegal for him to become a union member. But Ongike sits down with him, his assistant with a lawyer sits down, he knows the law. Are you telling me that these people don't know the game they are playing? Know the game they are playing. This man cannot be a union member, not to talk about becoming national president. I'm telling you what the law said. I'm also telling you what is the practice before this aberration started in 1990. So the point I'm trying to make is that these people know what they are doing. The solution, because in life we should be full solution focused, is let government stop negotiating with ASUU. ASUU has legitimate demands. 2 of them I've mentioned. Let them go to their council and go and get the results they want. They should stop negotiating with the government because the government is not the employer. Second solution, because let's start to think about solution, is that you see, the primary purpose of a trade union is the protection of the interests of its members. One of the things that has happened to ASUU is that ASUU protects its members, and also KA said professors in the UK can be members of academic staff union. But remember, I said in terms of extension of management. So when you are a professor and you become an head of department, you are extension of management. But remember, because it's good for us to put that in context, in Nigeria, a professor as a member of Senate is part of the appointment process for a vice chancellor. So a Senate member is a potential employer of a vice chancellor. The search committee must have Senate members. The council committee must have Senate members. That doesn't happen in the UK. And that is why you can't compare the professor in the UK with the professor in Nigeria. The professor in Nigeria is involved in the appointment of the vice chancellor. Therefore, is part of management. And that's the difference. So I was talking about the second thing I think we should do, and that's the fact that we need to accept one critical fact, and that is ASUU should remain a trade union focused on protecting the interests of its members. However, ASUU does something now that is beyond being protection of the interests of its members. ASUU has also become the watchdog of the university system. So that is why ASUU will be fighting that government must release money for the revitalization of the university. PLIDE,
yes.
You have employees.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible for your employee? Okay, so you employ a driver,
yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
You employ a driver,
yes,
and you gave him a car. The car is manual transmission. The gear is manual.
Yes, sir.
Can that employee ever ask you that, sir? I don't want manual again. I only want to drive automatic. And if you don't buy automatic, I will go on strike.
It's not possible. It's not possible.
So why is ASUU asking government to fund this university? I am like this now. I am an employer. If I have a cook and I tell cook, go and cook for me, the cook cannot say no. The money is that's his job. What? So the problem is that ASUU has beyond protecting the interests of its members, has also become a watchdog, and it is in that watchdog role. It's now saying release money, do this. Why is it? Okay, part of the ASUU demand for the last strike is that federal government should stop state government from establishing universities. Because how does that concern ASUU? And actually, that's why I say ASUU likes to play games with the law. By Nigerian law, the Nigerian constitution, the establishment of a very university is a concurrent thing. You need to change the constitution to stop a state university from starting that. How can ASUU say stop establish that? ASUU has also told federal government stop establishing new federal universities. I mean, how does that? Your primary role is the protection of the interests of your member. Focus on that. Why are you becoming watchdog? And maybe the last point is, guys, this game will change. As of today, 51% of universities in Nigeria are private universities. I did a tweet earlier today, and I said all that needs to happen to those private universities is to increase their enrollment, make them become more affordable, and people will forget all this federal investing. We were here many years ago. When you in the 70s and early 80s, you will know the name of the chairman of the NUT for secondary school or primary school. Do you know the names now? Because in Lagos State, I shared a tweet earlier today. Over 90% of private schools in Lagos, over 90% of primary schools in Lagos are owned by the private sector. Right? The private sector owns 60% of students in Lagos today. Now, so what is going to happen is that gradually, and that's why I feel that government should establish more private universities. Let's have many, and let's have enough for people to choose. And all of us that are here, and that's the last point, and I'm trying to appeal to all of us, because we're here, part of the solution is that we must ensure we enable those private universities to succeed. They must be good, turning out great students, and they must become more affordable. In that way, we can have that competition. So if somebody also goes on strikes in Unilag, and you are not happy with it, you just cross to Manchester University, it's just a few kilometers away. That's what we should start to encourage. Because today now, is there anything you are doing in Sunko? You are using data from MCA. If you go to a private hospital, your children go there, but you will still insist that if your children does not go to Unilag, they will not succeed in life. You and I know now. If you go to Babcock College of Medicine, all the lecturers of Babcock College, practically all of them came from UI. You know the funny thing, I always say this joke like there's a university that used to be on Bodija Road. If you know it, but Bodija is a road that leads to University of Manor. Midway University, they used to call it. That university started with lecturers who are visiting lecturers from UI. You see, if a UI staff has a class 9 to 10 in UI and has a class 9 to 10 in Babcock, it's a full-time staff of UI, but it's a visiting staff lecturer in Babcock, and they clash. That guy will go to Babcock. And I'm not telling you fiction, I'm telling you what happens. There is a university in Cotonou. That university mass communication department is like Unilag Mass Com by extension. As we currently speak, the lectures back to back are given by Unilag lecturers.
Oh my God.
So if you say that you want your child to go to a school that where you'll be taught by good professors and good lecturers, honestly, if you send him to Unilag, if you see this good professor, but they have strike, and there is another school somewhere across the border that this same man is, it should we not just allow him to go there? So I personally feel that all of us should, and I agree, that 5.35% goes to private investment, but little drops of water make a mighty ocean. Before, when Columnist started, when MTS started, we were all on NITEL. But when we started to see the value, we started to, that's why all of us must become agents of change. So some of you here, you pay school fees, you are responsible, you advise people on where to send them to school. Stop badmanting the private university. We should end it. I feel that's part of the solution. Honestly, there must be competition. That's what has made secondary education effective in Nigeria. That's why today, with your WAEC results in Nigeria, you can go to a university in America. You can go to a university in Canada because because of the competition in the secondary school system, we have elevated the level to the extent that if somebody passes WAEC, he can come to school in Canada. I have words that have done that. I mean, we're not an educational consultant, and that's where I've seen that happen. But the problem is that boy goes to Unilag and goes to do industrial physics or goes to do theoretical chemistry. He applies to come and do a master's in the same Canada, and they tell him that he needs to do some undergraduate courses. You know the funniest thing? When I graduated from the university, I graduated with a first class. I applied straight to University of Cambridge for a PhD with my first class, because as at that time, with a first class as a Nigerian, you apply straight to go and do a PhD. That is what I experienced. So how will it now be possible that today somebody will have a first class from Unilag in engineering and they're asking him to do undergraduate courses? It's because while the secondary school system has grown and developed because of the diversity and the general upliftment, the university system has remained a monopoly and the quality has not grown. So we must ensure those private university people strive. When they grow strong, they do well, then you will start to see that these strikes will reduce. Because at the end of the day, you know what you want at the end of the day in life. You want your child to have a good future. If somebody tells me, I want my child to be an accountant, I'm going to tell him to covenant. Because the guy will graduate with accountancy, BSc, and also graduate as an accountant. I'm a member of the Charter Institute of Personnel Management. I sit on the council. We have signed MOU with university. There are universities today that when you graduate, as you are writing your final exam, you are also getting certification from us. So this boy comes out with 2 degrees and he goes to study industrial relations or whatsoever for 4 years. He graduates with 2 certificates. His friend goes to UI or Unilag. In 4 years, he has not graduated. Then he graduated in the 6th year with only a BSc. Honestly, the business case is already obvious there. And we need to support. And I know some people will say, oh, this thing, it's our brothers and sisters and friends and churches and organizations that own those private universities. And we can influence them to do the right thing. But we must ensure that competition drives up the quality that will work in our private and public universities.
Wow. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so very much, Prof. That was again, and already, I already know. I'm trying my best to see how we can integrate those who are part of this this evening, to allow others to speak as well. Like I said, there are quite a lot of very important, very key VIP guests in our midst, and I want to give them a chance to have a word in. But it would be an injustice if I don't just go back to Dr. Oyewole for just a few minutes to get. I think I've allowed 2 of them. Have gone twice already, so it's almost like an overkill going back to Prof. But to Doctor now. But Prof has actually made some key points, and basically this is not just. We're hoping that from this tonight as well, we can actually have a small thing in the press, in the newspapers, towards as our contribution towards this, towards solving these recurring problem. Of course, Prof did mention state government should even start creating, should start their own private schools, and I'm like, how does that work? What the modus operandi of that? How do you the government is the main facilitator of the public educational system in Nigeria, and then you're saying, also they should actually begin to establish private schools as well. Would they go like academies, or these are questions that I hope that if we have some time we'll ask them tonight, but if not, then maybe hopefully we can do a part 2 at some point, subject to your availability. But let me go back to Dr. Oyewole, Dr. Zico, for just a few minutes. Prof has made some very key points there about the university system, the public university system vis-a-vis the private ones, and the viability, and also the argument as well that this all comes to the fact that ASUU in itself, number one, he did say that ASUU is going beyond. The ASUU is no longer a trade union. They've forgotten their primary responsibility of just fighting for the interest of their members. Now they almost like a militant union, more or less. And he did mention a few other things which I know you heard. So let's come to you, Dr. Oyewole. How do you respond, sir?
Yeah, Mr. PLIDE. Yeah. I think let me repeat again that some of the submissions that Yomi is coming up with are merely academic for now in Nigeria. The unilateral separation between the governing council and the government is theoretical. The fact that ASUU is involved in the election and the final selection of the Vice Chancellor is also theoretical. Most of the things he's saying are in the books. They are the way things should be if the government is responsible. But when you have a leadership that is irresponsible, what happens is that people will agitate. This is a government that wants to make education free for all. The amount of money students are paying. If every child can go to a private university, I belong to the Baptist denomination. My children cannot go to my medical school. That's the truth. It's unaffordable. So it is good that the government says, okay, I'll bring subventions. But if I bring subventions, my governing council also must serve my interests. And in serving that interest, none of the governing council members can now begin to criticize government and get things straightened out the way he's talking about. Most of the private universities, for most courses, are not as functional as the public university. That's the truth. I wouldn't advise anybody to take his children to any of the medical schools that are being run by the private universities, because they don't even have the funding, what it takes to fund those medical schools. Because what it takes to pay the consultants and all of that, they can't. Like in my school now, in my Bowen, don't let me say this, but let me say it. Some people, even when they cannot pay their school fees, they are not allowed to write exam. And I was saying, I want to meet the university. This is not right. If one of my friends who has a son like that wanted to go to the court, I was the one that begged him that please don't take this. You're Baptist, I'm Baptist. Don't take the VC to court, because it's just something I cannot. So if you see what is going on in the private universities, you will still appreciate the public university. Number two, the majority of the people that are living below poverty line cannot afford private universities. That's why I'm saying that most of the submissions Yomi is coming up with is branching into an ideal multinational private sector where actions are well regulated. Once from the day you get employed, you have a book you study. This is your responsibility. This is the responsibility of the employers and the employees. Do you understand what I'm saying here? So where that does not happen in the public university, before things get settled, this thing will continue until we settle down. That's the reality. All those separation of governing council and all of that is just theory. And for some of us who cannot afford the private universities, our children will still stay in the public university. And like I keep telling people, get your children to learn another trade. I got my son to be a photographer. You understand? One day he will graduate as a doctor. He will learn how to survive. I also went through that system. And then possibly I can push him out. But not everybody can pay back fees. Not everybody can pay upward. And it's also the elite again that are grinding up in those private universities against the people. Because the government is saying, no government can now say, okay, the lorry will be paying 1 million naira. For me, the amount of money I pay in Lautech Medical School, I feel is low. But that is for me. But how about my friend who is a carpenter, whose son also needs to be a doctor, So we've not been able to balance that, and this is, for me, it is a journey. Now, in the process of that journey, you don't now use ASUU as the scapegoat. You also made mention of the fact that ASUU is supposed to take care of the welfare, and then, of course, it is now asking at acting like I've forgotten the word he used. Now, you can't separate welfare from the fact that you also need to tell your employer what is expected. That example is given. If you tell me to function as a surgeon, you said you have a theater. There are many times surgeons have refused to operate when certain basic provisions are not there. So the employer needs to also make the enabling environment conducive for me. When you don't do that, I wouldn't work. So I don't think it's outside of the profit of ASUU to say, please, for me to teach this course, I need this chemical, I need this equipment, I need it to be in place, sir. It's not quarrel. You understand what I'm saying? And so there's no law that says that the employee cannot tell the employer, this is the kind of atmosphere I need to be able to function. If you want me to come up with this, if you want me to come up with this. And that's what ASUU is doing, in my own opinion. And for me, this is going to go on for a long time. Because it's the war of classes. Unfortunately, our upper class is a primitive one. It's a selfish one. They are ganging up in the private schools. I'm sorry for some of us who are managing to have children in the private school. But the bulk of our people cannot afford those private schools. And they have to remain in the public school. What the government needs to do is to be responsible, meet the demands of ASUU, and then regulate their functions. They can regulate through the governing council. The governing council calls you. What you have said, the government should do, we have done it. This is your part of the bargain. But when the government continuously becoming responsible, you have so-called representatives who say you should go and meet. Who will go and meet? Now, for instance, we have not worked for like 3-4 months now. The truth is that government is going to pay, even though there's this rule: no work, no pay. So maybe the government may need to hire Yomi to argue no work, no pay. They will pay. Now the question is that government, are they not sick in the head? If they can pay this money, why can't they pay them and then let's work out the agreement? It's a simple thing. But we have a leadership that isn't responsible, and it's the military people that have laid these foundations like that. And even the subsequent democratic governments come in and continuously, what ASUU takes to the table, in my own opinion, they're also not expecting they're going to have 100%. It's negotiation. Now, no work, no pay. You will pay work that is not done. Then you will also reach an agreement. Is that not a crazy leadership? Don't you think there are a lot of things the leadership needs to put in place? You have employees, you are not giving them optimum environment to function. You are not coming up with rules and regulations within which they should work. Let anyone violate the rules, the person gets sacked. After you have met their demands. Simple. Leadership is not rocket science. But you cannot talk of this technicality of the laws when the employer itself is irresponsible. I think it's nullity. Government will pay the number of months we have not worked. They will also reach some agreement and they will continue. But if we pray for a leadership that is reasonable, you want to get the best out of your employees and then create an environment that is going to help everybody by proper negotiation and saying, please, this is what I can afford. They're not going to meet up to all the things ASUU is asking for. They cannot. ASUU also recognizes that. But after we reach this agreement, the so-called governing council that Yomi is talking about, where are they? Are they going to sleep? Has Yomi ever seen when a governing council chairman calls the VC, the kind of dynamics of relationship? Let me tell you, no ASUU member is involved in any selection process of any VC. You must have read how the Ibadan one went, how the OAU went, and all other politics and all of that. That's what it goes. And then, of course, it just takes Muhammad Buhari or maybe the Minister of Education to be interested. And these are the way the things work. So I want Yomi to come back again to the public sector. Maybe come and work in the university a little bit. You understand what I'm saying? And see the dynamics. What you are saying is the ideal utopian way in which you be. This is Nigeria we all dream about. But we are not yet there. However, come up with solutions that will help us in the journey to these ideals. But as it is today, this is what is obtaining. We are going to get the number of months, which is a waste on the part of the leaders. What kind of employer is that? You have to pay for work not done, and you still meet the demands to an extent. Is that not some sickness? So we have a leadership that is not providing an enabling environment for people to be productive. For this kind of private whatever is a very long journey. Most of those private universities are actually ripping people off. in a way. The quality of the education cannot match what we have in the public universities. Yes, we can have 1 or 2 lecturers going to private universities, different from, like my college, even Lautech, very small college of medicine, it's solid. You can't compare Bowen to it, you can't compare Babcock, you can't compare Abuad. A lot of our colleagues are about to leave Abuad because of the way the man wants to be running the place. They said, no, you cannot run the place like this. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, they have an agreement, but you cannot run the people and be paying them peanuts compared to what the government is paying. So government is paying a lot. Government is, for instance, my heart bleeds when a good number of our doctors finish medical school. My children, when they finish now, they're going to travel, they're going to practice abroad. It is taxpayers' money they have used to cheaply educate these people. Can we have a leadership that is responsible, that can trap these children? As I'm speaking, we have less than 100 psychiatrists in Nigeria here. One of the boys that I employed about 2 months ago, himself and his wife, I gave him senior lecturer position so that he will stay. Brilliant guy. And his wife, he just called me. I can send a chat to you now. The chat is sent to me. He said he's at the airport. He's on his way out. That's going to get a job in UK. Is that not an irresponsible government? An employer of labor must make the environment good enough for those that we have trained to stay. What ASUU is asking for is not rocket science. If we have a Minister of Education state who can buy 100 million naira, whatever, and within 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, people contributed 25 billion. And what these people are looking for is 18 billion. Why can't we give them 12 billion and then begin to regulate the system? I don't know whether you're getting what I'm saying here. This is the reality that Prof is not seeing. You are going to the utopian side, raising up there. No, we are not yet there. Those technicalities will not work anywhere. Either industrial action, any industrial something, forget it. No work, no pay. They will pay the salary first. And then we start, and then they will pay their group. So thank you so much. I may be off because I need to go somewhere, but I think it's been experience.
That's fine, sir. We'll quickly go into the questions. So just give us about 15-20 minutes because just bear with us, sir. And I want to thank both of you. You've done great justice to this. But of course, Dr. Adeoye, and this is not to let you because we need to allow participants to actually ask questions. We've got a few questions on social media as well. Not too sure we can entertain all of them, but we're going to promote it and ensure that we collate the questions and bring them back next time. But of course, you did make mention there that you kept saying with a very big sense of assuredness that again and again government will still pay, and that is actually one of the arguments that people have against these strikes. That if, for example, I get paid for refusing to work for my employer, even if I refuse to pay to get paid, even if I refuse to work for 1 year, after the 1 year they'll still pay me, and that 1 year, whilst I'm not working for them, I could actually go abroad or go anywhere and still earn another. So that's double pay for the year. It's an inspiration. It's actually an inspiration. It's an encouragement, to even.
Whose fault, please?
Don't, sir. Just I'm sure some others will want to ask questions here. So I'm sure someone will ask you that question. You and Prof. So let me start. I believe we've got. I can see the loads of them. There's K. There's debts. DETS. I believe there is Johnson Abali. Quite a lot of them have been, and of course Chinenye Mba Uzoku, and of course our own Director General of the Chartered Insurance Institute of Nigeria, Bimbo Tiani. So I'm going to allow them to, and anybody else who wishes to ask a question. So let's start with you, Chinenye. Do you want to unmute yourself and make your contribution to this topic, or if you want to ask a question or just want to have a comment? Of course, you've written quite a lot in the chat. Chinenye, just unmute yourself and fire on. You're muted. Can you okay, that's.
Thank you for the opportunity. I was actually typing quite a bit because I didn't want to. I found the discussion very engaging, and the panelists were extremely extremely knowledgeable on the issues. I did want to just try to make. I think I'll just kind of summarize it in two or three core points. First is that yes, that ASUU is a union, and given the structure of the way education is situated within our constitution, there really isn't any way to hold anyone accountable for outcomes. If you look at the publication, the Global Accountability Report for governments across the world in education, Nigeria doesn't even have any numbers. because we are not accountable in any way. The Constitution creates a lacuna around education, and that lacuna is one that all the governments and, to a large extent, the education community are operating within. So the union must come in and play the role that it is actually playing of not just fighting for its members, but also being a watchdog, because if there is nobody else who's going to do that. And it's a very odd situation. But having said that, when you look at ASUU and its role as a watchdog, what it does is that it points out what government has not done. It doesn't provide any solutions. I've not seen a single report by ASUU, and I'm quite old, where they have looked at the education system as a whole and said, this is what we should fix, and this is how we should go about fixing it. What you end up with when you unpack everything that they're doing, it ends up being about salaries. And this issue means that, and the issue was emphasized during the COVID period, where ASUU was actually the one saying that the universities cannot go, the education system cannot go into hybrid learning or even online learning. It accounts for the reluctance of the university system to open up to allow what you call initiatives around e-learning, which is exactly what can expand that capacity, that enrollment. It accounts for a whole lot of policies that are being held. It's a very interesting thing to see that both the regulator and the regulated are on the same side in terms of holding down the system, rather than translating it into a 21st century type environment. And everything that's being said is all to me one thing. You need to go to the courts. At the end of the day, the constitutional lacuna must be actually sorted out, and it can only be sorted out by somebody agreeing to go to court. But the only person who can take that to court is probably the public. And for that example, you can see that there was a 2014 ruling around Unity School admissions. Olisabakowa took the government to court over the issue of discretionary or cut-off marks for students into admission to federal government colleges, and got a judgment, and that judgment has not been implemented, and nobody can do anything about it. So long as you continue with this issue of impunity and a lack of a reluctance to either use the law, or even when the law has been used, people just continue to act in an arbitrary manner, then we're going to end up in the situation that we're at. The last point I want to mention is around budgeting. When you look at ASUU's demands for the tertiary education system, it shows that ASUU doesn't have the education system as a whole at heart. Because what they've done is that they've asked for all the money that the equivalent of what ASUU is asking for on a recurrent basis is actually, the capital basis is actually equivalent to the budgetary allocation of around 5 ministries put together. Health, education, defense, etc. When you add all this money together, literally, and you pump all of this into the tertiary education system, which we must be very clear, and Nigerians don't have this number, but they must know this number. The total numerical strength of the tertiary education system in Nigeria is about 2 million. That's 1% of the population. There is no way you can justify diverting the amount of money that they want into that alone at the expense of the rest of the education system. But ASUU doesn't seem to care and doesn't mind. And the question then would then be, how do you then fund the education system? I believe that the system has to be converted, has to be changed, made more transparent, more accountable, and use more technology. And lastly, there is no accountability within the university system. It's a closed system. They do not want anybody to see what goes on inside there. They wield autonomy like a big stick. They want to be given money and not be held accountable for how that money is spent. They don't even report to us, the taxpayers, what happens inside the university system. And everybody knows, including the lecturers themselves, know that the system itself is riddled with a lot of incompetence. A lot of people who are not supposed to be in that university system are inside that system, students and staff, and they are protected in their mediocrity by the same policies that they are fighting for. We sat in ASUU meetings and listened to lecturers who are professors who can't articulate in English a sentence, a paragraph. We've been to university systems and seen the people who are supposed to be lecturers and passing on knowledge are themselves not equipped to even teach what it is that they say that they're teaching. So if you want to go to the public, I think that ASUU should be willing to look in on itself. They should be able to do a proper forensic analysis of itself, of the performance of the universities. There's a report by Professor Kebukola which states very clearly the level of plagiarism in the university system amongst lecturers themselves. It's as high as 12%. it was last 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the Minister of Education, the NUC Secretary, Executive Secretary said as much as 50% of the graduates who are coming out of the university system are unemployable. When a system is underperforming to that level, who takes accountability? And why should you keep paying for something that is producing effective products? So there's a big conversation that has to be held. The public must be willing to pay for quality. The university systems that are themselves advocating for quality must be held accountable for whatever goes into them. And we need to be able to create an opportunity for many more people to come into the university system by changing the school models, if you ask me, and creating much more access to online learning, which is really the only way you can actually fundamentally expand access to the university system. And lastly, the ASUU needs to take responsibility for the entire education system. If it wants to act as a watchdog, it cannot be selfish and be fighting for salaries for itself and itself alone, and talking about what is good for it when it's not talking about what is good for secondary education and for primary education. I'll stop there. Thank you very much. It's an excellent conversation, and congratulations to the panelists for the really, really insightful comments that we're giving today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've really, it's been really deep. It's been in depth, and of course, I'm already appealing to the panelists. We've not been able to do enough justice to this. Of course, we've merely scratched at the surfaces today, but I'm hoping that in the next few weeks that we'll be able to actually have a part 2 of this. But of course, in the meantime, like I said, we'll work on all the recommendations from this one and put them in the press, put them out there. Thank you so much,
Mr. Plyde, let me quickly react to the last speaker.
Okay, sir. Can we let them ask the question? Can we let the comments all come in so that you and Prof can then?
I'm afraid.
Okay.
I'm afraid that I may not be able to stay today, but he
okay.
with a very solid contributions.
Okay, go on, sir.
And all he has come up with, sincerely speaking, is the responsibility of government through the governing council. Rather than Prof Yomi going about the legality of separation of governing council and the VC and the federal government, whoever becomes a member of the governing council should be equipped enough to increase the quality of service delivery by these lecturers. I don't know whether you're getting what I'm saying. After the government has met a bit of these their regulations or these their demands, the governing council shouldn't be people who are politicians who only come to sleep and demand 20 million because they are flying from Sokoto to Lagos and is coming with his 3 wives and all of that. That's what they do. So for me, all the things the last speaker said is what I expect if I'm supposed to be close to government, that when we are spending this so much money on these people and they are demanding this, then let's get them to work. Let's set up a system. Any of you that does not meet up to this minimum, get out of the system. So we have a system where the leader, the government, is irresponsible. How can the government say no work, no pay, and you still pay? Is that not some stupidity? If it's their private university, would they pay? Most of them who are politicians who have enough money to set up private universities, do they pay somebody who doesn't come to work? In private university, you clock in 8 o'clock, and then if you're absent for like a week, they must know where you went to. You must take proper permission. So for me, the buck stops on the federal government's table. Come with people who are capable in the government council, set up a system that is going to deliver, and then let's go. ASUU is surviving. ASUU has come up with a survival instinct, and they are ready to embarrass and jeopardize government policy, and they come around political time. So because that's the only time the government becomes responsible, so that they can win another election. Why can't they be responsible the other 3 years? It's the only way they can go. Forget about any budget for strike. There's no budget anything for strike. It is the responsibility of leadership. If I own a private university, there's where I want to run it. If I pay heavily, why is there many private universities have not started College of Medicine? Because it's capital intensive. We cannot do e-learning because I don't have a computer in my department. They may give money to the university, but it is these governing council people, politicians, that steal the money with the vice chancellor. The lecturers don't know anything. So thank you so much for this, please. I love those contributions.
Thank you
to the federal government.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Oyewole, and thank you so much, Mr. Chineyemba Uzoko. And we love to have, I would love to interrogate your thoughts about this thing, because in terms of the statistics and everything, and of course, I like that particular aspect about the funding, that if government were going to be giving us the kind of funding that they're requesting, I mean, it's actually going to impact quite a lot of things. Thank you so much. Now, let me quickly go to debts, DETS, and then after that I take Johnson Abali, I take Bimbo Tiamiyu, and then I believe there are quite a lot of other people there, but just keep it short, 2 minutes each. DETS, you can unmute yourself and let's hear from you. DETS.
Well, thanks. It's quite a good session. I'm actually jumping on another Zoom call, but I think it's gone well. And Chineye has spoken quite, decisively on, we cannot ask for input or not declare on output or the metrics of how do we measure. Okay, so all of this money has gone in, and we know there are issues around employability. We know that, so I think Chineye has really done justice to the conversation. And please keep this conversation going. The sad reality is that young people's lives are still going on within this discussion. Young people are, roaming the streets. They're the ones feeling this externality, and I think that we really have to come to a place where maybe the private sector also, who in the end go through, challenges, retraining, recruiting, going through a whole lot, getting quality staff from products of these universities. Well, at some point, we probably have to have some, maybe almost COVID approach to dealing with some of these problems, where we can't leave government to solve everything, but there might need to be some holistic, very directive input or intervention into how to rescue, some of these issues in the education sector. And as Prof Yomi has said, maybe, if we then start finding alternate modes of affordable education, this will go away. All in all, we need, human capital cannot suffer by the giant of Africa. We need to do better. So well done. Keep this coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you, and thanks for all those comments. They're really, really sharp, and very they really challenge the crux of the matter. Thank you so much, and we look forward to you joining us again. Let me quickly allow Bimbo Tiamiyu, that's the DG Chartered Institute of Insurance of Nigeria. Bimbo, you may unmute yourself and let's quickly hear from you. Then I'll go to KA after you. Then Bimbo, go on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Nice discourse. Fortunately and unfortunately, I'm involved because my daughter is in a public university, and I'm getting to think, do I want the second one to go there too? I'm also thinking that what Prof said could be an option. Probably if we parents gather together and sue, whether ASUU or government cancel, or we cancel the government, it's an exercise in fertility. Probably something would come out of it. But my own take is this. Prof has said a lot, which is mind-opening. Dr. Oyewole should go back to his team and get the ASUU people to have a rethink. It's insane for them to be getting paid for not working. Even if government pays you and government does not know what is right, you as ASUU, you should not collect the money. You should refund it if you have a good conscience and you have a clear conscience. Because it's not fair on the parents. These children are at home doing nothing, blaming parents for something that is not our fault, beefing us unnecessarily, and some of them are getting into vices that are avoidable if only ASUU would have a rethink. So between ASUU, Prof, and the government, they should please do something good. It may not be legal or it may not be right, but let it be morally sound to the parents and the children. Let the children be back in school and let us have a sane environment, at least to continue with. That's just my take. So please, ASUU, doctor, go back to your people and tell them parents are complaining, we're not happy. I know you're also a parent, but your own is small because you are a teacher, you are earning salary. If they don't pay you now, they pay you. So please, you are not one of us as parents in this instance. You are ASUU. So go back to your people and do it. And Prof, do more analytical work. Let them see reason with you, and let the government and ASUU and all of you agree and get the children back to school. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bimbo. Thank you, because in fact, listening to you, I recall what Prof did say. Prof said, in fact, the CIPM has gone into some kind of agreement, covenant, so to say, with some universities. As your private universities, as you're finishing your 4-year course, you're actually at the same time being awarded the certification of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria. So you're basically graduating with 2 certificates, whereas your mates in the public universities, they're at the end of 4 years, they've even not finished, and when they finish in 6 years, they actually just come out with a BSc. These are things that and I know that you, as the director general of the Chartered Institute of Insurance as well, these are things that people like you think about, but I believe that people like you should have a voice in this conversation. It's time to begin to to shake the tables a bit more, to knock the walls down a bit more. Thank you so much for that contribution. I know there is I know I saw Babatunde Kolade and but let's go to Johnson Abali first. So we're giving preference to some of our guests tonight. Johnson Abali, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just like everybody has said, this has been a very intriguing conversation. What I find a little more intriguing, though, would be that ASUU doesn't seem to enjoy a lot of sympathy from the general public, many of whom have been through public university. And that says something. It tells you that most of us seem to agree that ASUU should be doing a whole lot more. Prof seem to have defined governing council as those folks who are between the demand and supply side of policy, which is a very tricky place to be in. Because if they become the employer of labor for ASUU, then how would they interface with government when government is not giving up to the bargain? And I think this is part of the reason why the government council are in a limbo all of this while, which is a cross of the argument of Doctor all the time. Why what Dr. Yomi has said is practicable in certain climes, I think that becomes the goal. We need to start to make this progress. But the question, if Dr. Wale is still available, that I would really like him to address is, why is ASUU avoiding this conversation around quality frameworks? Internal quality frameworks that are supposed to guarantee the outcomes that directly impacts the economy of the nation. Because when economic outlook basically is a whole idea. That's education really. It's a human capital strategy for driving our economic aspiration, and that has fundamentally failed. All right, so there is no framework, as it were, that ensures that happens. Which is why, like Prof said, I come out of the university locally here, and I'm still expected to do some kind of remedial program elsewhere before I'm even accepted to do another kind of program. So these are some of the issues that ASUU is willing to address, and this is why they're losing a lot of public sympathy a lot. And I think that I work a lot with young people, and I know what the feel is on the street. So I could say here categorically that our youth have lost absolute confidence in the education system, especially the way that our public system is run and how ASUU have made this a perennial thing forward. I think it's about time that all of the stakeholders and elements involved in this conversation come together and begin to look at this within the broader framework of where we are heading as a nation over the next 50 years. Because whether we like it or not, technology will soon unbundle education the way we know it, the way it has unbundled several other industries. Education is next, and the way singularity, AI, and all these other things are inflecting careers back and forth, it will not be long before we have all of these other things already obviously looking at micro degrees, which will make many of our public universities increasingly uncompetitive. So these are the things that they need to look at. The future is looking really bleak for public education until we come back, get our ass together, and answer the key questions around frameworks, quality control, and outcomes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Johnson Abali. Thank you so much for joining. We really, really appreciate that. And thanks for all those very incisive comments that you put in the chat. And of course, we're going to send all those comments to our two panelists tonight. And if any one of you wants those questions and all those comments in the chat as well, just please, our Secretary General is in the chat, is part of this, Shola Fawehinmi. So just private chat him. We'll make sure we send it to everybody who wants it, so that we can continue that discourse. Can I have Doctor, I'll come to you, but Kay, I need to bring Kay in. He's been actually waiting. Kay.
Oh, hello. My name is Kenneth Amechi, and I'm a professor at the University of Edinburgh.
Oh,
so I know Yomi very well. He's my very good friend, and it's good to listen to him. And I know his views about ASUU and the like. But I think we need to move back a bit and look at the education system as a whole. Because if we want to fix Nigeria or ASUU, we need to walk back a bit. So the way I look at it is that education in itself has a role to play in civilization and development. In Scotland, for example, education is free from kindergarten to university. And that education is not cheap. So whilst we vilify ASUU, we also need to pay attention to the things they complain about. I know a lot of colleagues in Nigerian higher education system, and I pity them truly. Because as an academic in the UK system, I know the kind of support I get to do my work. I've also worked with a private university in Nigeria, and I know what they do also. So if we want to really pay attention to what ASUU is talking about, we need to consider the place of higher education in our system, and consider the role of education. We should never think that education is cheap. We should never think that education or the higher education institutions are meant for people who can't compete in the marketplace. People like Professor Yomi went out, left the university, and found themselves in the private sector. We can't continue to hemorrhage scholarship, quality, competence to the private sector, to the industry. The university should also be able to attract high caliber personnel. There was a time most people that were retained in the university had first class. There was a time they were giving scholarship to study abroad, and most of them returned. So what happened to that culture? We can't continue to do things and the same way and expect change, because what we've done in Nigeria is we have succeeded in demarcating causes from their effects. Right, so we do things, we expect that there are no consequences. If we have run down the university, it can only produce what it has. Unfortunately, also the university system has been politicized. So take what it takes to be a VC these days. Even the VC, the academics themselves, I was asking a question about the ASUU member, because the kind of things you see, how the universities, how lecturers or leaders of the university move around, you wonder whether they are academics or politicians. So the culture has also changed. So I think my point in a nutshell is that we need to go back and think about education holistically, have a national education policy that looks at it from kindergarten to university. And within that, we begin to ask questions in terms of what sort of system, what sort of actors do we need? Private universities, public universities, we need an ecology of service providers in this sense. So I'll leave it there, but for me it's shocking that we have what we have in Nigeria, and looking at it from outside it's even discouraging to a large extent. But education is not cheap. I think we need to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I caught the name there. That's Professor Kenneth Amechi, lecturer at University of Edinburgh, Scotland, United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us. Those are very deep. Education is not cheap, and you talked about the supports, that the system avails to you and everything. And of course, like I said, we're hoping to have a part 2 of this, and we're hoping to have all of you partaking here as well. I think I have Kolade Babatunde. I don't know if I've gone to Kolade Babatunde. I have Kolade Babatunde, and I'm willing to give you 2 minutes each as well to partake in this. So and I see Kunle as well, Kunle Mo and Kolade Babatunde. Let's go with Kunle first. We go with Mo, and then we go with Kolade Babatunde third, and then we should allow the 2 main speakers to respond, and then we just finalize for tonight. So let's start with you, Kunle, please. And fantastic, you're raising your hand as well. Kunle, you can have the floor. Unmute yourself, please. Okay,
thank you. My name is Kunle Ochemakide. I'm a friend to Dr. Adeoye. He actually invited me a few minutes to this beginning of this meeting, and I've enjoyed it. Brilliant talk. But we should know that the university problem is a micro part of our macro problem as a nation. But one thing I want to say is this, like the prof that discussed, we need to not be bad-mouthing the private university any longer. They have their role and they have their position. I remember when I was in medical school, University of Ibadan, and LAUTECH just started. Some people were talking about LAUTECH just a glorified secondary school. Today, I taught at LAUTECH for some years, and I'm very proud of a lot of our doctors that graduated from LAUTECH. Countless number of them are neurosurgeons, pathologists, psychiatrists, all kind of professionals within the country and outside the country. In the same way with private universities, I think we should desist from bad-mouthing private efforts and private university. Both of them have the role and they need to work together. The other important thing I want to mention, having been out of the country, is this. We need to look for funds for university in which this, especially scholarship for students and also available school loans for people to go to university. It's not cheap. They need to have access to loan. If people want education, Nigerians will look into it. Government, private. People want to go to those universities may be able to access loans and go and pursue their career. And the last thing that people have said it here, university need to be held accountable. You can't want autonomy, self-government, and not accountable. There's a lot of corruption going on in our university, like all aspects of our system. I have been there. I was a lecturer at LAUTECH, and I know what I'm saying. So I won't go about those three things. But seriously, one thing I didn't hear people talking about, financing school loans. We need school loans for our university. People that do not have money should be able to access loan, go to university, and be able to pay it. Because if we say we want free education for all levels, it's not achievable in Nigerian countries at the best of my knowledge, as I know now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you. Thanks for joining us as well. And thanks for that bit about LAUTECH and everything. Of course, nobody can actually talk down on LAUTECH today. LAUTECH has actually contributed a lot in terms of in terms of the national capacity in so many developmental core developmental areas. And before I call on Mo and Kolade Babatuna, I believe these are the last two that if there's anybody else I've not yet given room there, please signify, raise your hand. But I believe Mo and Kolade Babatuna are the other two. But there's a key comment here that that I believe Mr. Chineye brought up. He wrote in the charts, the politics of ASUU was mostly responsible for the internal decline of the university system through the pressure on university management. The political academics are most often the least productive in terms of research and publications. As a consequence, the mediocre leverage politics for self-advancement within the university system. The more cerebral and productive tend to be able to maintain themselves and their standing within the university system. Within the university system also, there is a dichotomy between the science and the arts in terms of status. The former are disproportionately affected by the rising cost of education and by implication personal career advancement through research and publications which are fundamental to the quality framework. These are key things, and of course the DG CII wrote, how do you then repay the student loan? That was in response to what Dr. Kunle said. Unemployment is high, how do you repay them? And of course Dr. Oyewole, but of course we'll bring him to and Prof to respond fully and we'll finalize. But Mo, if you want to have the floor, Mo, you may unmute yourself. So we'll just take Mo now.
Thank you very much. I didn't actually have my hand up, but I have been, on the webinar, and I find it really enlightening. And I think that we need to have more of these conversations. I am particularly drawn to the reality that as we we discussed the administrative, the management, the political, the legal implications of ASUU's actions and the government's response or lack thereof. What is happening, in a manner of speaking, is the trampling of the grass, when the elephants fight. And so I just wanted to draw us back, to the sort of impact that this is having on human capital in our country today. A situation where our learners at tertiary level are becoming increasingly uncompetitive in the global space, except for those that have the privilege of having attended schools where there is some sort of stability, in the system and in the academic calendar. And the second aspect is the implication on research, knowledge, and innovation. And it's important for us, as we resolve these issues, to ask ourselves questions about how competitive Nigeria really is when it comes to innovation on the continent of Africa. And I think that once we can bring these two back into the center of the conversation, the learner and also the innovation, I think that it might help to direct the way that we carry out reform actions going forward. But I have found it a very enlightening conversation and a very useful one. Thank you very much to Prof and to Doctor, and of course to yourself as well as the competent moderator. Thank you so much, Paul. Really, really appreciate you. Thanks for joining us. Like I said, to others, we'll look forward to having you back with us because we want to continue this conversation until we get a solution to this persistent problem. I believe the last person, Kolade Babatunde, I'm not sure I gave you a chance to talk first. Kolade Babatunde, you may unmute and just have the floor. There's no audio from you. Okay, I think you're there somewhere. Kolade Babatunde, okay, we can't hear a thing, but okay, can you just try unmuting from your end again? Okay, I'm so sorry. We would have to actually jump because I can see you actually unmuted yourself, but there's no audio from your end. So we just because of our time, we've actually overrun. And I'm just going to call on Prof to respond to quite a few of these things, and of course then get our section Shola Fawehinmi to do the roundups. So Prof, let's have you back on this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for all the questions, my very, very good friends, and all the comments and questions. I really appreciate. I think issues about education, issues about social issues are typically multi-dimensional, multi-hybrid, that we can approach them from various angles and solutions can come from many. So I will not directly respond to any question directly. Because all those ideas are great ideas that all we just need is to get people to implement them. But the only thing I just wanted to emphasize, and that's the fact that, as students of leadership, we have a burden and we have a responsibility. You see, a leader needs to make up his mind. Do you want to live in a world that is, or you want to describe a world that can be? For me, one challenge I get many times is when people say things like, it's not our reality, it's not our context, or things like, it's theoretical. Yeah, I understand. Leadership that is, does what is, it responds to the situation that it is. But leadership that is transformational creates a vision for tomorrow. It's utopian, it looks abstract, it looks impossible, but part of what they do is they share a vision of tomorrow and they galvanize attention towards it. When Obama woke up in 1952, 1953 and asked his Minister of Education to do a proposal to be presented to the Western House of Assembly in 1955 for free education, it was utopian. I remember for a fact that Leonard Azikiwe, for example, told him he was just wasting everybody's time. Everybody said it's not going to work. In 1955, when those schools happened, they made fun of them. People will not accept it. All the leading politicians made fun of Obafemi Awolowo for that. But today, it's because they sold that vision. In 1950s, when Oyewole sold the vision of having television station in Nigeria, when there were no television stations in many parts of Europe, it was utopia. People were like, what do you mean TV station? You know, I told somebody, I said, when Oyewole decided to start a TV station in Ibadan, the average Ibadan resident did not have a TV. But he saw a vision, he did not react to now. He saw the vision and people pursued it. So I don't think we should let our current realities make us determine the only thing that we will do. We can also cast a vision. We can cast a vision of a Nigeria where education is well funded. We can cast a vision of a Nigeria where there's responsibility by every stakeholder in the educational system. We can also cast a vision about the fact that we can make a difference. The last point, and I think our dear colleague who was in Lautech makes that point very brilliantly. A few years ago, universities like Lautech, like ASUU were like second generation and all that. But today, they have done well. There are a number of things we say about the private university. Let me say this for a fact. Actually, I'm doing a paper. I don't work in a private university any longer. So I can say it. It is not true that public universities are cheaper and for the poor any longer. I'm going to give you data. Like I say, I don't say these things and lie. I don't lie. I tell you. University of Ilorin, 2 years ago, convocation. Final year students of University of Ilorin were asked to pay 70,000 naira as convocation fees. You can verify what I just said. 70,000 naira as convocation fees. University of Ibadan, you want to become a veterinary medicine. The University of Ibadan will insist you pay association dues and association dinner as part of your fees. I am mentioning what you can reference. So when people say private university is more expensive, it is not as if the public university is more expensive. When we were there, how much was there? How much was accommodation? How much is accommodation now? Still go to you, accommodation is relatively cheap, but they will ask you to pay municipal fees. But what you will realize, because when I say these things, people say things like the children of the poor. Ask yourself, the best graduate, the 100 best students, not graduates, the 100 best students in 100 level from our paper is given a scholarship for the rest of education. So the children of the poor who are brilliant can benefit from the education. 10% of fees of that university owned by Anglican Church in Oyo, there's a 10% rebate for their church members. Landmark University, education, anybody who wants to study a program in agricultural is free to show. Landmark University. The university in Oyo town, owned by Anglican Church, anybody that wants to study religious education is free to join. I have mentioned agriculture, the university in Ondo, before they stopped it 2 years ago, anybody that wants to study agriculture is free to join. I have mentioned you what you can verify. That the children of the poor, if they want to go to some private universities, there are private universities that are not more affordable. But my own last point is, you know that popular Nigerian song, time now money, time now money. So you say private university is expensive, the poor can't afford it. You go to a public university and you waste 2 years. Time now money now. So the economics shows clearly what we should focus on. There's no every part of Nigeria that we say is thriving is because the private sector is running it. We talk about the excellence of Whiskey, we talk about the excellence of Wande Cole and all those musicians. It's private sector, it's not government. You watch DSTV, you watch all of those things, you know there is NTA. You are using mobile phone from MTN or V-Mobile, I don't know what, Glo or whatever. You are not using Nitel. So why would we see the part of Nigeria that is working, and then we now see one part and just decide to say it can't work because it's private sector? And I agree, we need to have a dual system. Governments need to fund education, but let me say this, and I'm going to say this because I know this government, the next government, shall not fund university education. Let's be very real. The data is there to show the obligation as defined by the UBEC Act is for basic education. That is the only part that you can sue government for not funding. You can't sue government for not funding university. So when Sinoziko says, for example, that ASUU is asking government to fund university because it's part of their role, or asking the employer to provide equipment, the question is, if you want to fight certain things, you can't use labor to make it happen. I'll give you an instance. Again, I don't talk theory, I'll mention what happened. In the state in the US, the governor decided to reduce budget for education. And you know what happened? Some of the people went and got the Attorney General to sue the governor. And that based on the funding act of that state, the governor cannot reduce funding for education. And they won in court. So if the government is not funding UI or Unilag, LASU or whatever, you don't take it as, it's not a labor issue. It's a constitutional issue. If it is, then go to court and enforce it. Go to court and get a garnishee order to make them to do what they have to do. That is what people do. When we say there is respect for rule of law in the democracy, that's what it means. You can't be using funding and be using unionism or employee issues. You're using the wrong tool to fight the battle. You will never win. And that's my own concern about the issue about funding. If you believe that government is not enough to fund this university, then you can compel them, because if there are laws that say they may find, and let me be very sincere, everybody is here. There is no law in Nigeria today that compels government to fund university education. There is a UPEC Act that compels government to fund basic education. There is no law in Nigeria. I'm saying it, and anybody that knows the law should quote it to me. So if these guys know who cannot legally hold them, and they are saying we don't want to fund more than this level, rather what we want to do is to create more universities, then we need to just face and define a future. So what do we do in spite of that? Is again all those councils to go and look for money. The last point I want to make on this, because again, it's about creating visions and making this happen. A governor of the state in the north has a state university inherited. Do you know what he did 3 months ago? He said, I realized the state cannot manage this university and it's not going nowhere. He invited consultants from Malaysia to take over that university. I have not mentioned what you can verify. It happened 2 months ago in Nigeria. The state governor handed over his university to a Malaysian system to run for it. In Nigeria, I'm not saying it all. So when people say ASUU will not, if we do it, ASUU will strike, there is ASUU in that university. They have gone on strike. The manager has taken over it and nothing has happened. We saw what happened in Edo State. The university in Iyamo by under Shomoli. The man said there shall not be this year, and it didn't happen. We saw what happened in Osun State University, where Adeoye started the university and said there shall not be here. We will charge fees. We will do this. ASUU talk if you don't want to go. So we have seen leaders in Nigeria take decisive action in education. The last one is Governor Obaseki. Governor Obaseki went and passed a law, working with the House of Assembly, suspending the powers of council and appointed a management committee for Edo State University and took over the role of council. And ASUU has gone to strike. But yes, ASUU has gone to strike and gone to court. But they know they can't win the court because you must fight with the right tool. We don't have those tools in Nigeria. And we just waste the time of the student. It's painful to me as a Nigerian that when ASUU goes on strike, who suffers are the students. It is not the government. The children of government officials are not in those schools. It's a pretty wicked for you to be fighting the government and you know the person that won are the students. But hey, we got to do what we got to do. This Nigeria must be better. But Nigeria cannot be better when we only get ourselves stranded with our realities. We must think about tomorrow, create those lofty, big hairy visions that when people hear, they'll say this thing is utopian, this thing is theoretical, this is not true. But it's only then that the world moves forward. And that's my request for us to allow ourselves to open our minds to possibility and pursue a Nigeria that is better than us, starting with the education system.
Thank you so much, Prof. At times you just know right away when there's a lot more to say, but of course we know Prof is mindful of time and we are mindful of time as well. But of course we've got to balance this out. We've given Prof the chance to speak, so finally we just allow Dr. Oyewole. I know there's Dr. Orubo, or I believe in, but I'm not really too sure we can accommodate anybody else. Otherwise, we're actually stretching it and taking liberties, So I'm just going to go with Dr. Oyewole finally, and then, of course, we do the vote of thanks from our section, and that's all we'll take. But I assure you, I'm just hoping that once we get a date for part 2 of this, we'll let everybody know, and, of course, we'll make it a bit more. We'll give you more time then. So, Dr. Oyewole, please, you may have the floor, sir. Just unmute yourself. I thought you were muted a moment ago. Dr. Oyewole?
Yes.
Okay, hello? So, yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes, let me quickly react to position of Yomi. I think in drive for reformation and excellence is not contextual. I see when you don't bring context into your vision, whatever you want to bring fizzles out. All those quotations of free education, free for the poor, is rubbish in the context of the number, the volume of the masses who wants to go to school and cannot even eat 3 square meals a day. There are people like that. And we still want their children to go to school. So, I mean, that is one of the principles that set up private universities, so that the children of the underprivileged in a particular place will be able to have access. So the reality on ground is that private-driven education will only be for the rich. The 70,000 they collect in Ilorin or 30,000 is not comparable to dropping 3 million or 4 million naira a year. Some people can afford 70,000. We were talking of paying 3 million. I'm saying in a private medical school, 6 million. I can't afford it. I can't afford 3.5 million naira medical school. My children want to study medicine. And I'm a doctor. I've been a consultant for years. I'm a senior academic person. So the reality, which is what I tell you, is that those ones are not existent. Now, how do we drive this change and it does not injure the vulnerables? Is the strategy. And you see, he brought out a point which our other academics in other developed countries have to actually give me a form of an insight. We need competent governing council members. When I mean competent, it's not just one barbaric man who feels that they are now compensating for how much he has spent, because that's how they elect members into the governing council that Yomi does not know. Those, if you have spent money for the election, they will now say, which university there? Okay, you go there. You understand what I'm saying? And then when they want to award contract, it is not ASUU. It is the vice chancellor who also ran to the same politicians to appoint him. When Senate meet and says somebody scored first, somebody scored second, everybody is waiting and praying. What is the visitor going to announce? It is what the visitor announces that becomes the vice chancellor. So we are running a system that is not idealistic. That one is the country, and then that we go and sue. What did he say? We go and sue. We go and sue constitutional rights. We go and say if the government does not have any right to fund education. You have to fund education in a poor country like us. They need that funding so that children who don't even have the same privileges as our own children can go to school. Because when the government does not, the fact is that the majority of the people won't be able to afford the education. Even in those churches that have their private universities, we are still agitating in our churches that we paid money to set up those universities. Why is it that our children cannot afford it? There's a lot of agitations in our churches all over the place. And of course, they don't understand that education is expensive. That's the truth. But the reality in Nigeria is that education has to be funded by government. But where I disagree is that when we are choosing members of the governing council, there should be people who are seasoned administrators who can hold these lecturers accountable to deliver. If you cannot deliver, maybe there's a way they say, okay, how many lectures do you give? Some people don't give lecture for 6 months and they collect salary. I don't know whether you're getting what I'm saying. This is where the argument of governing council comes in. Not that we should go and meet government. Which governing council will you meet? Governing council will say, don't disturb me. Go to federal government. But we can use governing council to ensure accountability. People should do work for what they are being paid. Anyone that does not fit into that, let them be sacked. They can bring in consultants, like he said, some other governors did, and then let's return some sanity to the education system. But to be going to the technicalities of, it's not in the constitution, we should go to court and all of that. ASUU has a right as to be a watchdog, as he wants to protect the welfare of his members. Thank you. I'm looking forward to part 2 so that we can have a closure on this. Thank you so much, PLIDE.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Oyewole. Thank you, Professor Yomi. I do apologize. I know that is Dr. I believe Dr. Nuruddin Olalekan Rubo of the Lagos State University. You know, I'm so sorry, sir. Just because of our time, we've really overstretched it, and I do not want to take liberty for license. You know, so I'm just gonna thank you, Dr. Oyewole, for hinting about the part 2 of this. Please, let's make it happen in the next 2-3 weeks at the most. Next week, of course, next week Sunday, we're having a webinar. We're having Collins, Dr. Collins Oyewole, you know, basically is just to help us to look at some of the issues in the economy, and actually especially the things that are coming out of the petroleum sector. They're so scary. They're really frightening. The thefts, at this time where natural gas shortage in Europe, in the West, where there's energy crisis, and all, since Nigeria is not able to step in, whereas the opportunities and all those things, so these are some of the things we'll be talking about next week. But we're hoping that maybe 2 weeks from today we'll be able to have part 2 of this. I want to appreciate all our guests who have come. Let me call on our secretary who does this so that I do not do his job for him, and then we end the session. Mr. Shola Fawehinmi, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Convener. I got wowed. I got overbloated with comment from Professor Yomi and same from Dr. Oyewole. On behalf of PLIDE and on behalf of this Transformational organization, we want to sincerely appreciate the two of them for their insight, for their comment, for their reactions, for how well they've been able to provide solutions to the educational.
Okay, I'm suspecting we lost him there, so we just need to end the session because of our time. I want to appreciate you once again. Those of you, Dr. Nuruddin, Orubo, thank you so much. Next time, I assure you, by the grace of God, maybe in the next 2 weeks, we'll give you.
In giving us the desired environment for learning. So I want to sincerely appreciate everyone who have joined us. I want to appreciate all our guests in-house. I want to appreciate all our guests on social media and everybody who have taken it upon themselves to join us on this session this evening. We sincerely appreciate you, and we didn't take your love for PLIDE for granted. And we look forward to having you again by next weekend and in a subsequent edition. God bless you all, and I wish you all a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Professor Kenneth Amechi. I've taken note of that. I've taken note of that comment. Thank you, and thank you for all the comments. We're going to aggregate them, please. Those of you who have requested to have the chat, all the questions, all the comments in the chat, we're going to send them to you ASAP. Please prepare in advance. Hopefully, we can do this again in the next 2 weekends from now. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. God bless you. Bye.